The air inside Moriyama Industries is thick with unsaid words. Power hums through the walls, woven into the sleek, polished floors and towering glass windows that reflect the skyline of Tokyo like a kingdom untouched. And yet, despite the calculated serenity, there's an unmistakable undercurrent of tension, a storm brewing beneath the surface. Standing at the heart of it all, Rosalyn Carter does not flinch. She steps through the colossal marble-floored lobby with slow, deliberate strides. Her presence disrupts the rhythm of this place, a world of conformity, of quiet submission to hierarchy. The whispers start the moment she crosses the threshold, rippling outward like cracks in the very foundation of this empire. She is not welcome. The moment she steps into Moriyama Industries, she feels the weight of 100 pairs of eyes, sharp, assessing, dissecting. The foreigner, the disruptor, the woman who has come to unearth the secrets buried beneath decades of precision and control. Rosalyn doesn't waver. She was built for this. Her tailored suit is crisp, her heels clicking against the marble like gunfire in a silent war zone. The receptionist stiffens, fingers hesitating over the keyboard. Two suited executives glance at each other, tension lacing their posture. She knows what they see. A black woman in a sea of men in tailored Armani suits. A woman who does not belong in their world. A woman who has come to tear it apart. A slow, creeping chill snakes through the air, shifting the unspoken hostility into something more potent, awareness. Because at the top of the grand spiral staircase, overlooking the scene like a god from his throne, stands Saito Renji. His presence is a thundercloud on the horizon, tall, immaculate, unshaken. He does not blink. While others whisper, Renji remains utterly still. His suit, deep obsidian, sharp as a blade, fits him like a second skin, and the watch strapped to his wrist is worth more than most people's yearly salaries. But it's his gaze that cuts the deepest, cold, calculating, assessing her like a threat. Even from across the lobby, Rosalyn feels it. The weight of his scrutiny is suffocating, like a noose tightening around her throat. She has read about him. She has studied every detail of the empire he built. A corporate strategist feared by his rivals, known for dismantling competitors with the precision of a surgeon. A man whose name carries the weight of absolute control. A leader who does not tolerate weakness. And now, for the first time, he has met someone who is not afraid to stand against him. Their eyes lock. The entire floor holds its breath. The moment is silent, but it is deafening. Renji's lips curve slightly, not into a smile, but something more dangerous. A warning. Rosalyn tilts her chin higher. A challenge. Neither of them move. Neither of them break eye contact. The war has begun, and everyone in that lobby knows the walls of Moriyama Industries will never be the same again. The boardroom at Moriyama Industries is a fortress of power, vast, sleek, and lined with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the Tokyo skyline. The space is designed to make anyone who steps inside feel small. But Rosalyn Carter refuses to be intimidated. She stands at the head of the obsidian conference table, her posture straight, her shoulders squared. Her deep brown eyes, filled with quiet defiance, sweep over the sea of powerful men seated before her. Corporate titans, financial giants, men who have spent decades building an empire that she has been sent to dismantle. And then there's him, Saito Renji. He doesn't sit. No, he stands at the far end of the room, his hands resting lightly in his pockets, exuding an air of unbothered dominance. His suit, custom-tailored and impossibly pristine, clings to him like it was forged around his body. The room is silent, waiting, watching. Renji tilts his head slightly, assessing. His dark eyes, so sharp they could cut through steel, settle on Rosalyn like she is a puzzle he intends to solve. Finally, he speaks. "You're wasting your time, Ms. Carter. His voice is low, smooth, dangerous, the kind of voice that could either command obedience or send shivers down someone's spine. There is no corruption here. Rosalyn doesn't blink, doesn't flinch. Instead, she tilts her chin slightly, her full lips curving into something that is not quite a smile, but not quite neutral. "If that were true, Mr. Saito," she murmurs, "you wouldn't be trying so hard to intimidate me." The air shifts. Something changes. The executives around the table exchange glances, uneasy, uncertain. No one speaks to Saito Renji like that. No one. For a fraction of a second, silence stretches between them. Then, he laughs. It's not loud, it's not forced. It's something dark, something amused. "You misunderstand," Renji says smoothly, stepping closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "I don't need to intimidate you." He leans forward slightly, invading her space without ever touching her. "Because if I wanted you gone," he murmurs, voice just above a whisper, "you wouldn't have made it past the front door." Rosalyn refuses to step back, refuses to show even an inch of weakness. Instead, she lifts her brow, her confidence unshaken. "If I were that easy to get rid of," she replies, her voice silken but laced with steel, "you wouldn't be standing here trying to convince me to leave." The tension in the room is suffocating. The executives hold their breath, waiting for Renji's reaction. But he doesn't get angry. He watches her, studies her, and then he smirks. It's small, barely there, but it's dangerous. There's something between them. Something electric. Something unspoken. Hatred. Challenge. Something else. Finally, he straightens, breaking the moment. "I'll give you one warning, Miss Carter," he says, voice casual, but laced with something undeniably lethal. "You may think you have power here, but Tokyo is not your city, and Moriyama Industries is not your battlefield." Rosalyn steps forward, just enough that they are now face to face. "And yet," she says softly, tilting her head, "you still seem afraid of me." For the first time, his smirk vanishes. The room is silent. A battle has begun. And for the first time in his life, Saito Renji knows. He has met his match. Saito Renji is not a man who loses. And he certainly does not tolerate defiance. Within 24 hours of their first encounter, orders are issued. No one speaks to Rosalyn Carter without explicit approval. No financial records are to be handed over without going through Renji first. Security is tightened, surveillance doubled. She is to be contained. But Rosalyn is not a woman who takes orders. For every obstacle Renji places in her path, she finds a way around it. She leverages lower-level employees, using her charm and sharp mind to extract information. She hacks into secured files, using legal loopholes to justify her access. She catches small irregularities in transactions that Renji's people failed to erase. And Renji notices. Oh, he notices. From the top floor of Moriyama Tower, standing behind floor-to-ceiling windows, he watches as she moves through his empire, fearless and relentless. She should have been intimidated. She should have realized that she was standing against a force too powerful to fight. And yet, she thrives in battle. His control over everything, his company, his people, his world, has never been questioned. Until now. Until her. For the first time in his career, Renji is forced to strategize against one woman, and it both infuriates and excites him. The tension between them reaches a boiling point at the Hoshikawa Charity Gala. Held at the Grand Imperial Hotel Tokyo, it is a night of glittering wealth, whispered deals, and unspoken rivalries. Rosalyn doesn't just attend, she owns the room. Dressed in a silk, deep crimson evening gown that clings to every curve, she is a force of elegance and danger, a woman who does not need permission to exist in a world that was never built for her. And Renji sees her. From across the room, standing among Japan's wealthiest elite, his eyes follow her movements. She should not be here, and yet, she moves through the crowd like she belongs. Then, as if feeling the weight of his gaze, Rosalyn turns. Their eyes lock. For a moment, everything else fades. A silent challenge passes between them, and then Renji moves. He approaches with the grace of a predator, weaving through the crowd until he stands before her, dark eyes unreadable. "Miss Carter!" His voice is smooth, controlled, but Rosalyn hears the edge beneath it. She lifts her glass. "Mr. Saito." The air between them crackles. Around them, people watch, unaware they are witnessing a war unfolding in silk and shadows. Then, Renji extends a hand, an offer, a dare. "Would you care to dance?" Rosalyn hesitates, not because she is afraid, never that, but because this is not a dance. This is a battle. Still, she takes his hand. The moment their fingers touch, a current of something sharp and electric shoots through her. Neither acknowledges it, not yet. The music swells. They move together, seamless, perfect, but not gentle. His grip is firm, possessive, as if holding her in place will somehow control her. Her posture is poised, unyielding, refusing to be led entirely. Every turn is a challenge. Every step is a declaration. Their gazes never break. "Still wasting your time, Miss Carter?" Renji murmurs against her ear as he spins her. Rosalyn smirks. "If I were wasting my time, you wouldn't be trying so hard to distract me." His hand tightens around hers for just a second. A slip, a tell, and she catches it. He's watching her too closely, too often. Why? The realization hits her like a whispered secret in the dark. Saito Renji isn't just trying to stop her investigation, he's trying to figure her out. The night after the gala, Renji can't sleep. For the first time in years, his thoughts refuse to stay orderly. Rosalyn Carter has rooted herself in his mind, in his pulse, in the space between his ribs. It's not logical. It's not safe. It's not acceptable. And yet, he finds himself watching security footage of her movements in the building. Every flicker of her expression, every controlled movement, every time she tilts her chin in defiance. She is not just a threat to his company, she is a threat to his control, to everything. He tells himself he is just being cautious, that he is merely assessing his enemy. But when he catches himself pausing the footage to watch the way she touches her lip when she's deep in thought, he slams his laptop shut. This is not caution. This is something else, something dangerous, and it will destroy them both. The storm that Rosalyn Carter has been dancing with finally swallows her whole. It starts subtly, a whisper here, a missing file there. Small, almost invisible manipulations woven into the corporate machine, planting the seeds of something vicious and inescapable. Then, it detonates. She arrives at Moriyama Industries one morning to find security waiting for her. Not the usual guards who nod at her in wary acknowledgement. No, these men wear government insignias, the kind that come when the law is not just knocking, but breaking down your door. Rosalyn Carter, her full name, cold, official, a declaration of war. "You are under arrest for corporate espionage." The words hit like a bullet. Before she can react, she feels cold steel tightening around her wrists. Cameras flash. A horde of reporters seem to materialize out of thin air, their voices merging into a chaotic storm of accusations. "Ms. Carter, did you steal corporate secrets? Are you a foreign agent? Is this part of an international scheme?" She fights, not physically, never give them that, but with words, with steel in her spine, with a glare that dares them to break her completely. "This is a setup," she snaps, her voice cutting through the chaos. She looks around, searching for anyone in Moriyama Industries willing to meet her eyes. They don't. The executives who once smiled in fake politeness now turn away. Her allies, silent. She is alone. But when she lifts her head, she sees him. Saito Renji, watching, unmoving, expression unreadable, a judge at the execution. And for the first time, fear coils around her ribs. Not fear of the charges, not even fear of losing. Fear that he won't stop it, that he will let her burn. The headlines spread like wildfire. Corruption scandal at Moriyama Industries. Foreign analyst arrested. Spied on corporate secrets. Who is Rosalyn Carter? The media paints her as a criminal, a deceiver, a woman who came to Japan to dismantle one of its greatest corporations from the inside. Her past is dragged through the mud, her credentials questioned, her reputation obliterated. She sits in a holding cell, the walls pressing in, the cold metal bench digging into her back. Alone, disgraced, and with every second that passes, she wonders, where is he? The door creaks open. She doesn't look up, not until she hears his voice. Miss Carter. Slowly, she lifts her head, and there he is, Saito Renji, a man who has never looked anything but composed, untouchable, in control. But now his mask is cracking. The air between them shakes. Renji does not move closer. He doesn't need to. The distance is already unbearable. For a long moment, neither of them speak. Then, finally, her voice, raw and quiet. Are you here to watch me fall? Renji's jaw tightens. This is not my doing, he says. It's not a lie. Not exactly. She laughs, but there is no humor in it. I suppose it doesn't matter, she murmurs, staring down at the metal cuffs around her wrists. I walked into your world thinking I could fight you and win. I should have known better. This empire was never mine to challenge. His fingers flex. Something in his chest tightens. You think this is what I wanted? His voice is lower now, quieter, darker. She looks at him then, really looks at him. And she sees it. The conflict, the war, the part of him that does not want this. But it's not enough. You're the only one who can stop this, she whispers, and you haven't. Silence. The kind that feels like the space before a building collapses. Renji knows she is right, knows he stands at a breaking point. If he lets her go, she will be blacklisted, deported. She will disappear from Japan, from his world, from his life. And his empire, it will remain untouched, untainted, powerful. If he saves her, it will cost him everything. Power, reputation, control. He could let her fall. He could let her become nothing more than a cautionary tale. He should. He's always done what is logical, what is necessary. And yet, something inside him rebels. Because when he looks at her, he sees more than a woman who dared to challenge him. He sees the only person who has ever truly seen him. The only person who has ever stood before him without fear. The only person who has ever made him feel alive. And for the first time in his life, Saito Renji does not know what to do. Renji, his name on her lips is not a plea. It's a dare, a demand for him to choose, to decide, her or his empire. For the first time, Saito Renji does not have an answer, and that terrifies him. The detention center is cold, bathed in sterile white light, designed to break people without ever laying a hand on them. Renji has never been here before. Men like him don't come to places like this. And yet, here he is. He walks with measured steps, his polished shoes barely making a sound against the concrete floor. Everything about him is untouched, pristine, in control. But his mind is a battlefield, wreckage scattered across every thought. Then, the door creaks open, and there she is, Rosalyn Carter, the woman he destroyed. She sits behind a metal table, wrists cuffed, skin marked with faint bruises along her arms, signs of restraint, mishandling. But her posture, unshaken. She is exhausted. He can see it in the shadows beneath her eyes, the way her breaths come just a little too slow, a little too heavy. And yet, when she lifts her head and meets his gaze, she is still fire, still the woman who walked into his empire with her chin held high, unafraid. His stomach tightens. She should be begging. She should be pleading for him to fix this, to pull her out of the abyss he helped create. But she just watches him, like she is the one holding the power in this room. And Renji? For the first time, he doesn't know what to say. He steps forward, hands sliding into his pockets, a display of calm, of control. Because if he doesn't hold on to something, he might break. Rosalyn's voice cuts through the silence. You shouldn't be here, Mr. Saito. He ignores the way his name sounds on her lips, the way it punches through his ribs like a bullet. You think I would let this end without facing you? He asks, voice steady, measured. She tilts her head, smirks, but there is no amusement in it. Strange. I thought that was exactly what you do. He should have expected that. Her sharp tongue, her refusal to submit. But still, it digs into him like a blade. Rosalyn. His voice is lower now, almost dangerous, a warning. But she doesn't flinch. Instead, she leans forward slightly, her eyes dark with something unreadable. You have everything you want, Saito, she murmurs. Soft, but cutting. Power, control, wealth beyond imagination. She tilts her wrists against the cuffs. The metal bites into her skin. So tell me. Her gaze locks onto his. What does it cost you to ruin me? Renji stills. The words hit him like an earthquake, a question he cannot answer, because she is supposed to be nothing to him. A challenge, a rival, an obstacle to remove. And yet, she is the first person to ever stand against him without fear. The first person who has ever seen through him, through the mask, through the perfection. And now, she sits in front of him, bruised because of him, exhausted because of him, on the verge of losing everything because of him. And yet, she is the one asking him if he is the one who lost. Something in his chest tightens, twists, suffocates. Because for the first time in his life, Saito Renji falters. His mask slips. His fingers curl into fists at his sides. He wants to tell her it cost him nothing, that she was a war he fought and won, that she means nothing. But the words don't come, because he knows she is not a war he won. She is the war he is losing. Rosalyn watches him, studies him. She sees it, the way his chest rises just a little too sharply, the way his fingers twitch like he wants to reach for something, reach for her, but doesn't. And for the first time, she sees Saito Renji not as a man of power, but as a man undone. Nothing to say? She asks, tilting her head. His jaw clenches. His entire being is screaming for him to walk away, to end this, to shut her out. But instead, he leans forward. The space between them shrinks, and when he speaks, his voice is a raw, quiet thing. I didn't want this. It is not an apology, but it is the closest thing to weakness Saito Renji has ever shown. And Rosalyn? For the first time since this started, she sees an opening, a crack in their armor, a wound in the unshakable empire, and she plans to use it to burn him to the ground. It is past midnight when Saito Renji makes the choice that will ruin him. The room is dark except for the glow of his laptop screen, the only illumination casting shadows along the sharp edges of his face. His hands hover over the keyboard, poised on the brink of treason. To protect her, he must betray everything: his company, his empire, his very identity. But he does it anyway. His fingers move swiftly, rewriting the narrative that was meant to destroy her, erasing the fabricated evidence, manufacturing new proof, evidence that points to an internal conspiracy within Moriyama Industries. He ties the corruption to his own executives, names names, opens doors that should have remained closed, burns everything he built to the ground. And as the files are uploaded, he exhales sharply, like a man accepting his own destruction. This will not go unnoticed. This will cost him everything, but he cannot let her fall. The next morning, Rosalyn Carter walks free. The charges against her? Dropped. Her name? Cleared. Her reputation? Restored. But at what cost? As she steps out of the detention center, she expects the world to feel lighter. It doesn't, because she knows. She knows the truth wasn't rewritten by luck. Someone did this, and there is only one man who could have pulled the strings: Saito Renji. Her blood is still boiling when she storms into his office. She doesn't knock, doesn't wait. She slams the door open and marches straight toward him. You. Renji doesn't look surprised. If anything, he looks like he was waiting for this. Tell me why. Her voice cuts through the air like a blade. Renji leans back against his desk, calm, unreadable, dangerous. I assume you're referring to your newfound freedom, he says smoothly. You bastard. Don't play games with me, Saito. She takes another step closer. They are too close. Why? She demands, voice sharp. Why the hell would you do it? His jaw tightens. You're smarter than that, Rosalyn. You already know. Her breath hitches. No. She refuses to believe that. You don't just betray your empire for someone like me. She hates how raw her voice sounds, hates the way her pulse thunders when she looks at him. Renji's gaze darkens. You think I had a choice? His voice is lower now, dangerous, the weight of his decision pressing into the space between them. Rosalyn shakes her head. I didn't ask you to save me. His lips curl into something that isn't quite a smirk, isn't quite anger. You didn't have to. The words are so quiet, so heavy, and that is when it happens. The tension between them snaps. It is not soft, it is not gentle. There is no hesitation, no prelude. 1 second, they are staring each other down like enemies on the battlefield. And the next, she is in his arms, and his mouth is crashing against hers. It is not a kiss of love. It is a kiss of war, of rage, of everything they have tried and failed to suppress. His hand slides to the curve of her waist, pulling her so damn close she can feel the thunder of his pulse. She hates him. She wants him. She doesn't know where one feeling ends and the other begins. And that is the most dangerous part. Renji breaks the kiss first, but only because he has to breathe. His forehead rests against hers, both of them panting, both of them ruined. But before he can say a word, crack! Her palm collides with his cheek. The sound echoes through the office like a gunshot. Renji doesn't flinch, doesn't move. If anything, his smirk deepens. Rosalyn's chest rises and falls sharply. I still don't trust you, she breathes. Renji tilts his head. His cheek burns from her slap, but his eyes burn hotter. Then we're even, he murmurs. She hates him. She hates him. But even now, as she storms out of his office, fire blazing in her veins, she knows the truth. There is no turning back. This war between them, it has just begun. It happens faster than even Saito Renji could have predicted. One moment, he is at the helm of Moriyama Industries, untouchable, unshaken, the master of an empire he built with his own hands. The next, he is surrounded. It starts with an emergency board meeting. No warning, no schedule. He arrives at the top floor of Moriyama Tower, stepping into the boardroom with the same sharp confidence he has always carried. The city glows beneath him through floor-to-ceiling glass windows, a kingdom he has ruled without challenge. But tonight the walls close in. He sees it before they even speak. The subtle shifts in posture, the way the executives refuse to meet his gaze, the silence that is too controlled, too rehearsed. And then, the final blow. "Mr. Saito," one of them says, too formal, too distant. The man slides a thick manila folder across the glass table. Renji doesn't move. You're aware, of course, that information has surfaced regarding your recent interference with legal affairs? The words are careful, sterile, an execution disguised as diplomacy. Renji finally moves, reaching for the folder, flipping it open, and there it is. Every trace of his betrayal. The falsified documents, the tampered security logs, the proof that he orchestrated Rosalyn Carter's freedom at the cost of his own company. Everything he thought he had covered, laid bare, a trap. Not one set by him, one set for him. For the first time, Saito Renji is outmaneuvered. "This is treason," one of the board members says, voice edged with cold triumph. Renji leans back in his chair, tilting his head slightly. "You're mistaken." It isn't a denial, just a delay. But they know. The room shifts, the balance of power no longer in his favor. They do not cower. They do not look away. And that is when he realizes, this is not just an attempt to remove him. This is a coup. He built this empire from the ground up, but the empire no longer belongs to him. The signatures on the documents, already signed. The shares he once controlled, frozen, seized. The company he once commanded, no longer his to rule. Renji's fingers tighten around the edge of the folder, but his expression remains neutral. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Your resignation," another executive says smoothly. "Effective immediately." Renji exhales slowly, the smallest hint of a smirk ghosting across his lips. "And if I refuse?" The CEO across from him, the man he once trusted, the man he mentored, leans forward, lacing his fingers together. "Then we'll bury you, Renji." For the first time, he is the hunted. The room holds its breath, and Renji laughs. By morning, Saito Renji is nothing. The media erupts with the scandal. Headlines scream his name. Saito Renji forced to step down in corporate scandal. Moriyama Empire in chaos as former CEO faces internal investigation. The fall of Japan's most ruthless powerhouse. His office is stripped, his penthouse emptied. His name, once a symbol of fear and reverence, is now a stain on the very company he built. And yet, when he stands outside Moriyama Tower for what may be the last time, he does not regret it, not even for a second. Because Rosalyn Carter walks free, and for the first time, Renji understands what it means to lose something that was never his to own. Days pass. Renji stays in the shadows, away from the chaos, away from the world he no longer belongs to. The power, the control, all of it gone. He should feel rage, but all he feels is emptiness, because the truth is merciless. He never truly cared about the company, not in the way he thought he did. He only cared about winning, about controlling. And for the first time, he lost. Not because he was outplayed, but because he chose to lose. He chose her. Late at night, he stands in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of a different penthouse, one that does not belong to him. A drink in his hand, a storm raging over Tokyo, and in his mind, one question. Was it worth it? The thought lingers, echoes, and then a quiet voice in his mind, one that is not his own. You have everything you want, Saito. Power, wealth, control. So tell me, what does it cost you to ruin me? He closes his eyes, opens them, a slow exhale, and then, for the first time in his life, Saito Renji knows the answer because he has lost everything, and still, he does not regret it. Rosalyn Carter never intended to see him again. After everything, the betrayal, the kiss, the fall of his empire, she should have walked away. She tried. She told herself that Saito Renji was still the enemy, that he was dangerous, that he was the reason she almost lost everything. But then she sees the headline, and the world shifts beneath her feet. The headline is brutal, sharp, a blade meant to cut deep. Disgraced ex-CEO under investigation for corporate crimes. The words glare at her from the screen, but it is the subtext that makes her stomach twist. Fraud, illegal transactions, embezzlement, all fabricated. She knows what this is. The company, his company, isn't satisfied with removing him. They want to erase him, bury him under false charges, under lies and deception, until there is nothing left of Saito Renji but the memory of a man who once ruled Tokyo. And for the first time, Rosalyn understands what it means to have power stolen from you. Because she lived it. Because she knows what it's like to have your name dragged through the dirt. To watch the world twist the truth until you no longer recognize yourself. She should leave it alone. This is not her fight. But something inside her refuses to let him burn alone. She finds him in a low-lit penthouse, stripped of its luxury, its power. The man standing in front of the window is not the same Saito Renji she once knew. He is sharper, more dangerous, but beneath the hard edges, she sees the exhaustion. She sees the man who lost everything. You look like hell, she murmurs, stepping inside. Renji doesn't turn. I've been busy, he says, voice unreadable. She folds her arms. So, it's true then? He finally turns. And the moment their eyes meet, the air between them snaps. You shouldn't be here, Rosalyn. The way he says her name, low, slow, like a warning, like a plea. And for the first time, she realizes he was expecting her, that despite everything, he knew she would come. You're being set up, she says. Renji smirks, but there is no amusement in it. You think I don't know that? She takes a step closer. Then why aren't you fighting back? He exhales slowly. Because I'm tired. The honesty in his voice is like a punch to the gut. Because this is not the man she fought against. Not the man who built an empire out of nothing. This is a man who has lost too much. And somehow that makes it worse. You can still fight, she says. Renji leans against the window, watching her carefully. And what? Win my company back? Rebuild my empire? He laughs, but it's empty. Don't you get it, Rosalyn? It's over. She hates the way that sounds. Like he's accepted it. Like he's already lost. Not yet, she says. His gaze sharpens. What are you doing? And then, she does the most reckless thing she's ever done. She pulls out a USB drive and tosses it onto the table. Renji stares at it. That, she says, is everything you need to expose the real corruption in Moriyama Industries. Silence. She sees it. The moment he understands what she's just given him. She's not just handing him a weapon, she's choosing his side. Renji looks at her like he doesn't know whether to kiss her or kill her. You do realize, he says slowly, stepping closer, that this means war? She doesn't flinch. I do. A slow, dangerous smirk tugs at the corner of his lips. There he is, the man who never lost, never surrendered, the king without a throne. He picks up the USB drive, rolling it between his fingers. Why are you doing this? He asks, and she knows what he's really asking. Why are you choosing me? Why are you standing beside me when I ruined you? She exhales. I don't know, she admits. But I do know this. If they're coming for you, they're going to have to come for me too. His gaze darkens. And then he steps closer. So close, she can feel the heat radiating off him, can hear the sharp inhale of his breath. This is a mistake, he murmurs. She smirks. Probably. A charged pause. Then Renji laughs, low and dark and dangerous. Then let's burn them down. And just like that, the war begins. Tokyo is burning, not with fire, not with smoke, but with the destruction of an empire. The fall of Moriyama Industries is all over the news. Moriyama Empire implodes in scandal. Saito Renji, from king to exile. Secrets exposed. How one woman brought down a dynasty. The company Renji built, commanded, and ruled with an iron grip. Gone. Ripped apart by his own hands. And yet, as he watches the headlines flash across the city's high-rise billboards, he feels nothing. No rage, no regret. Because in the end, he was never meant to win this war. He was meant to burn. And beside him, Rosalyn Carter stands among the ashes. The night air is cool, sharp, carrying the distant sounds of the city moving on without them. They stand on a rooftop overlooking the wreckage of what once was. Neon lights reflect off the steel and glass of Tokyo's skyline, stretching out before them like a kingdom they no longer rule. For the first time in his life, Renji has no throne. And yet, he has never felt freer. He turns to Rosalyn and smirks. You were supposed to ruin me, he murmurs, not save me. She laughs, soft but edged with something deeper, something real. Maybe I did both. Their eyes meet. A silent war, a quiet surrender. Then, Renji exhales. Something rare, something unguarded. His voice drops, quieter now, more raw. I've never trusted anyone like this before. Rosalyn stills. For all his power, for all his control, Renji never once let anyone in. But he let her in, and it ruined him, and it saved him. Her fingers tighten around his. A silent acknowledgement, a vow. This is not love wrapped in fairy tales and soft promises. This is love in its rawest form, messy, violent, unforgiving. And yet, it is theirs. She holds out her hand. A challenge, a promise. He takes it. No hesitation, no looking back. Together, they walk away from the wreckage. Because winning was never the point. Because power was never the end game. Because in the end, they found something far more dangerous. Someone who could match them in every way. The end. What did you learn from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you never miss an update. Don't forget to share this video with someone who would love it. Thank you so much for watching.